years, for 30 years really, Krishnaji has been speaking of the breakthrough in the human mind, of an ending to this linear stream of consciousness and the emergence of a capacity of perception which containing and simultaneity and acting simultaneously with all the senses together can lead to a perception which, breaking through the limitations of the human mind, make it possible for it to hold the demands of the new, of the future. I was told by a great physicist the other day that the next few years are going to be years of new discoveries of time. There will be discoveries in the field of physics. I think Krishnaji has started the movement for new discoveries of the process of time and man as the creator of time within the mind. I thought that I put it before you, maybe there may be some better problem we could discuss. But could we discuss mind and time and consciousness? The nature of time as it is created by the mind, and whether it is possible to end this and so be free. I'm just taking it, perhaps there may be a better subject for discussion.
Won't you begin, sir, please?
Sir, are we discussing the subjective perception of time in the psychological sense, or also we discussing the objective time mathematically calculated by a clock? These two times are obviously different from one another. Time measured in physics, time measured in the psychological states of mind. Are we going to keep apart these two senses of time, or are we going to concentrate only on the psychological measurement of time? If there could be any measurement like that at all.
When we had this subject of future of man, we had in mind our normal concept of a continuum, that the past creates the present and the present modifies and creates the future. So we are really in a circle which is a closed circuit created by the mind itself, because the past creates the present and the present creates the future. In this fashion, time is the factor which seems to imprison us in a circuit of our own making. Now I thought that when Bukulji suggested that we take up time, the idea was, she also mentioned a breakthrough. So the idea was that is it possible for us to perceive actually that we are making time, that we are the people, each one of us is making time.
If I may add one sentence to that, obviously you can't keep the two streams absolutely apart. But time, in the sense of the clock, and any understanding of that needs much more than a discussion of this. The only thing a discussion of this nature can bring to
Sit on the cushions.
is time as manifest in the process of becoming. I've been bring it down further. That's an element of the human mind which caught in becoming creates the future and the past and slides over the present.
Surely it's not just the human mind that's caught in the process of becoming, but the whole natural world as well. Because animals and plants are equally caught in the process of becoming. I mean, they may not be aware of the fact that they are, but nevertheless, it seems very clear that they are.
How would you define becoming? How would you open up that door?
That's good.
In most cases in the natural world, I think things are moving towards a goal. And the goal of animals and plants is usually growing from the egg towards a mature form and reproducing themselves. And so there's usually a process of development towards a goal, which is usually a repetition of something that's happened before. And I would say this process of becoming, this process of developing from one stage towards another stage, a goal, which is usually based on the past goals. The way a hen's egg develops into a chicken, the way a seed develops into a tree or a plant. These are processes of becoming, which are natural processes, which are part of the natural world. And we can interpret them by the mind. I find it difficult to believe that they're merely constructions of our mind. I think they're really there.
May I ask, I'm wondering whether Dr. Sudarshan might comment on that first question. I think it might bring these two things together. This question of whether psychological time and objective time are different, or whether there's some connection. If there's going to be a revolution in physics regarding time, I somehow feel it involves both these, psychological and objective time.
Essentially, with your permission, could I wait for 5 minutes to catch my breath? Because so let the discussion go on a little bit more, perhaps I could.
No, taking up what you said about the process of becoming as the seed becoming the tree or the egg becoming a chicken, surely there is a difference between the baby becoming the man and that which says, I will be, I will become, I am this and I will be that. Surely there is a difference in the very one is a biological state, the other has no reality at all.
Well, I don't know. I think that these psychological states are based on biological states, and it seems to me that they're in many ways extensions and developments of them. And it seems to me that the becoming of the tree from the seed is not very different from psychological desires to achieve particular goals. One involves more awareness than the other, perhaps, those similar things.
But I don't quite, I mean, I may be, but it's difficult to accept that, isn't it?
I find it difficult to question it, and it seems to me so obvious that the process of becoming, whereby living organisms achieve particular goals or states, that are strongly motivated towards them. I mean, if you prevent dogs from doing their natural sort of things, seeking food, looking for mates, and all that kind of thing, they strive towards these goals. And so plants, if you prevent them from growing up, they break through the ground and try and grow up, and the roots thrust downwards. And there's this purposive activity in living things based on going towards goals, which we see in the psychological world as well.
I wonder if we could look at it this way, that what is objective? Whatever is objective is also becomes real through our subjective. That is, for us, for each individual self, the objective becomes real through his own perception, his own subjective reaction to it, understanding of it, involvement with it. And if we could expand our subjective time by expanding our awareness, so that more than the minimal moment we catch now because of very limited consciousness we have focused at any point, if we could expand it, then the expansion which overtakes our subjective time would also be seen as overtaking the objective existence. And what has been seen as serially developing might then be observed as being existent at the same time. I have to use the word time because I have no alternative.
Yeah.
Is that...
I think the progression in the physical sciences has been from static configurations to dynamic cycles, dynamic processes. Initially, you see things as you say, common parlance, as they are, but really as they are not, because you see only static things. But it takes a certain amount of time to take motion itself, movement itself, as part of the functioning, one of the qualities of the universe. And then you realize that in a certain sense, you have not been seeing things until you see them moving. In fact, the great achievement of Newtonian physics was the recognition that motion with constant speed, constant velocity, was not to be explained. Motion with constant speed was a quality of the system, and only departures from them had to be. So, space of motion of a single particle, instead of a three-dimensional space, it really became a six-dimensional space because you had to specify both the initial position and the initial velocity. You have to have at each point not only the point itself but a flow at that point. So it is more like the streaming of a fluid rather than static objects that are remaining. So, and as time goes on, you begin to see more of the thing. And we do this in everyday common sense things. You look through the window and then say, I see there is a tremendous wind. You don't see the wind cannot be seen, but what you see are the effects of the wind in terms of the motion of something or other. And then you say, I see it is very stormy out there. I see that there is a lot of wind. So, by and large, the progression is from substance to process. That process itself becomes one of the constituents of our physical world. And what the 20th century quantum theory has taught us is that this joining together is not an adornment, but in fact, substance itself is in the nature of process. That in fact, there are only processes, or technically speaking, only operators, not quantities. They are not ordinary numbers. And of course, consequent on the thing, of course, is a revision of our understanding of what is the nature of the world, what can be said about the thing. But process or movement is itself a part of the physical world as you see it.
And they ask, how do you relate this to that inner time which is contained in jealousy, greed, envy, etc. That is the fact of energy, greed, jealousy, and the non-fact of wanting to be free of it. Take this simple thing in which the whole process of becoming is contained. How do you relate what you are saying now to this very, how shall I put it, the very instant of existence in which is contained this?
That's a tall order for me to fulfill, but I will try to do something, a part of the thing to see. But physics is normally understood, and therefore chemistry and so on, contain two kinds of times. One kind of a time, which is the clockwork time, which is the time by means of which the celestial bodies move, in which there is an unfolding or re-expression, paraphrasing continually going on of the initial condition. But nothing has been gained and nothing has been lost, in the sense that given the present configuration, you can go back and you can conceive of a situation in which the motions are reversed and every one of the previous configurations are retraced. It's a movie which is run backwards. And for the celestial bodies, when the movie is run backwards, nobody knows the difference. because they look about the same. There is a second kind of time which occurs in physical sciences, and this is the time which is relevant for the second law of thermodynamics, in which things do take place, and the future and the past are different. And if you run a film of those processes backwards, you know that something is amiss. A glass falling down and breaking into parts, ice in a glass of water which is melting. These processes are directed times rather than non-directed times. It appears to me that contemporary physical science is lacking in another kind of time, which is running in the opposite direction. This is the time of insight, of understanding, of total comprehension of the time which, or the processes which describe, what shall I say, victory over the second law of thermodynamics. Second law of thermodynamics says that things run downhill, that what has happened can never unhappen. And therefore, by definition, one yearns back for the earlier times when these things have not happened. And if you believe contemporary physicists, one would say, well, that's all that happens. There is no way of mending things. The past was always better than the future, because the past had the dynamics from which the future could be obtained, but the future does not have the potentialities of going back into the past. The past cannot become the future again. In the earlier one, the past and future were coextensive, that there was really nothing that was taking place. But the time of the dynamics of insight, the dynamics of love, the dynamics of coherence, dynamics of things coming together, that which is two becoming one, is not part of the physical science knowledge. There is no way in which physical science knows how to talk about something which was not known being known. And that stream, if it is introduced, that is part of our common everyday experience. If that stream is also introduced, then we have three different kinds of times which are all running. And I don't really know what I would like to identify as psychological time, because it is the psyche which seems to be involved in both the running down as well as the running up, as well as the unification, the disintegration and the fragmentation on the one hand, and the becoming whole, the being made whole on the other hand.
To keep the dialogue on the track, before you arrived, two questions were raised in response to Populji's introduction of the subject. Our learned professor said that the becoming process is beginning with the animal world, with the plant world, and that time as such applies as much to the plant world and to the animal world, probably to the world of the earth, etc., geological world, etc., because it is all a process of change, and change is time. That is as far as I understood it. If I am wrong, he will kindly correct me. Professor Sundaram said that there are two parallel processes. One is the process of materiality, of which you have spoken, and the other is the psychological process, and the two never meet. And the two are independent of each other, and we must be very clear in our mind if there is any interrelation between the two, or if the two must always move parallel but never meeting. I hope I am not misinterpreting it.
Is change time, or is time the consciousness of change and motivating that change in a particular direction? Is change by itself time?
That depends upon the definition which we offer. According to Dr. Sudarshan, the processes of motion thought of in physical terms, I think they constitute themselves the change. I would, for example, rather deny that there is a thing which changes or thing which holds the changes together or even gives a direction to it. The changes themselves constitute the time process. Change is a process, process is the time. There is no other way in which you can measure time at all except in terms of the processes. Apart from that...
Speaking about psychological time, when there is a process, which means there is a change, does that amount to psychological time? Or is time in the psychological sense the consciousness of the process and the directing of it, the motivating of it, whatever.
When we talked about the psychological time, I am permitted to mention, we wanted to distinguish between biological process of time and physical process of time on the one side, and the psychological processes of time on the other. When we talk about the latter, we are talking about all the mental functions of consciousness, for example. Then we come across a peculiar factor added on to the dimension of time, namely even memory. The very activities involve memory. Thought processes can never be understood except in terms of memory. And therefore it has got a history which can go back and forth. It is in a sense reversible, which is not possible except in very exceptional circumstances in physical time. In second law, the thermodynamics, probably there is a going back to the original condition, things like that. But so far as psychological time is concerned, there seems to be a process where we have a process, at the same time we have got a substantive permanence about it. Both these going on together, in which case alone you can speak of a direction and dimension given to this process.
May I ask one question? I would imagine that in a discussion of this nature, we are only concerned with time in relationship to the human condition, to the problem of sorrow, to the problem of this deep ache which is within us, which we cannot answer. None of the solutions of the physicist, none of the solutions of the biologist will end this tremendous anguish within me. I want to talk about that time, which is this anguish, and the quenching of that time. I don't think anything else, frankly. I mean, we may bring it in to explain it, but isn't that the central predicament?
Seems to me that we do a great injustice to objective time also. It's not all chronological time, and I don't think it's all biological purpose of time either. There's something altogether mysterious about the time of an occasion like this, for instance, of an age, of an hour, a year. It's much more. It's other than chronology. And it's also other than growth even. There is a timelessness to time. And this is true of what's out there. For instance, the subjective time of memory and nostalgia is as reprehensible, I think, as exclusive concentration on the chronology of outer time. One has, I think, to be liberated from both. And I think one tends to give more marks to subjective time and poor marks to objective time. But I think this is a mistake. The one unified time of our experience is other than both, and of course includes both, and is deeper than both, and it is of course a very sorrowing thing in itself, but it is also a joyous thing, because that is where creativity comes in, I think, not only the creativity of the arts, but of living and of being. And if I may borrow a theme, a recurrent theme of Krishnaji's, the absence of greed is what makes the perception of this unified time possible. And I do wish to suggest to this, to myself, that subjective time be not worshipped. That there should not be an idolatry of subjective time or a knocking down of objective time, but perhaps a celebration of what is both and neither.
Perhaps, Krishnaji, you...
May I come into this? I would like to say I am the past, the present and the future, both biological as well as psychological. I am the result of yesterday, today and tomorrow. I am the creator of time, both outwardly and inwardly. And I'm stuck in that place. I'm caught in this time. And that time includes my greed, my envy, my ambition, all the agony, pain, wounds,
and sorrow. I'm all that. My question then is time going to resolve all that? Or is there a totally different factor which will resolve it instantly? That's my question. Will memory absolve my conditioning, or a new factor is necessary altogether that will wipe away the past? Have I stayed?
Would you go into it a little more? Because leaving it there, you leave us.
No, I don't leave.
No,
We
so
want to discuss this. You may not agree to all this. I am the result.
If you could open it up.
Yes, I am the result of time, both outward and inward time, biological and psychological. And time is thought. Time is movement. My whole consciousness is the product of time. And the content of my consciousness is time. Greed, envy, and all the rest of it is put together by thought. And thought has created the future. I hope to be. I am not, but I hope to be. And I have no other answer except this eternal time movement. I think there is a totally different approach to this, which is can there be an end to thought which is time? Otherwise I go from experience, knowledge, memory, thought, action. From action I learn more and keep in this cycle. That's how we have lived and will continue in that way. Therefore there is no escape from this. One is a slave to time. And is there a movement totally apart from time? Otherwise I am doomed, not I. It is, human beings are doomed if we keep on this cycle of experience, knowledge, memory, thought, action, and from there begin again. Is it possible to move away from that altogether? And I think that is creation, not this eternal cycle. There in that you can invent, you can produce a new jet or a new computer or a new cruise missile, but you will always be in that circle of knowledge, action. Right, sir? Would you agree to that?
I completely agree with you, which is a shocking thing. But I completely agree with you. I did want to say, partially also in response to what Gopalji said, in fact, it is only the human condition in relation to perception that is relevant. And what I would like to, however, urge on you is that when I talk about the external world, when my friends talk about the external world, that external world is the world of our perception. Occasionally we might depute somebody else to perceive for us, but we perceive them perceiving. In other words, it is only in relation to what we see. The second thing that I wanted to say was that in relation to, there is some common thing between greed, envy, jealousy, anger, hurt, and time, because time always requires parts. A system which has no parts has no time. Time is always, I mean, if you look at the watch, look at any other mechanism of measurement of time, it is the comparison of configurations. Configurations require parts in relation to each other. It also requires not only the present configuration, but a reference configuration and the present configuration. So you have to have, in a sense, two different conditions which are continually contrasted with each other. How does envy occur? How does hurt, anger occur? They always involve what is and your ideal, your idea of what should have been, what should be, what was, what you thought was, what you have kept in your mind as what was the past.
But of course, it's only what you like, not what should be. What should be is not real.
What is real. And
I agree, and therefore, to the extent that one has only one perception, there is no time. This is not to say that there is no movement, because Dr. Kapoor brought up this point, that in fact the perception of the world contains movement. Movement by itself is not time. Time becomes associated with movement when you break up motion and see it as if it is a succession of events, succession of...
Towards something, always.
Right.
But I'm just asking for me, there is no duality. There is only what is. As I do not know how to absorb, dissolve, or transcend what is, I invent what should be. And my invention then becomes a contradiction to what I am, what is, and there is a battle between these two. That's my life. That's the life of every human being, practically. So, could we only see, observe what is and not what should be?
Sir, it is not correct for us that there is only what is. There is what is and what we think there is.
Of course, the idea and the fact. The idea is an abstraction of what is.
Yes.
So I don't make an abstraction. I just observe what is. In that observation, there is no time. That's the whole point. Which means the observer is absent. The observer is the past. Is that at all possible? To me, that I'm saying that, putting it forward for discussion.
Sir, if I may just say one little thing, and that is, I observe the microscope. In the same way as I observe the microscope, do I ever observe the factor or the movement of greed, jealousy? Do I observe it? I think first of all you have to start from the duality of that. You cannot jump. You cannot leap into a state when you say so I say it is not possible to jump into your statement.
But is there not a difference between looking at a microscope and looking at envy?
Why?
On the one hand, you're looking at something objective, which doesn't change how you look. Whereas with envy is part of you. And
But,
the whole,
no, but,
you change as well as the envy changes as you look.
No, but envy changes as you look.
Yes.
But do you look? You see, the whole point
But
is...
it's the envy looking at envy, so that it's a different
No, but
direction.
it then reveals something. The very fact of looking at envy reveals something.
Could I make a point here? I feel that in any mental experience, two processes are going on all the time. One is observation, and the second is reflection on the observation. And it is possible to cut down the reflective element in it. And we keep on cutting it down, finer and finer. What remains is observation, and then there is no time. Time is the reflection of reflection. And the more you are able to still those mental faculties which create this reflection, the more you still them, the more infinite the time becomes, the more expanded the time becomes, and when it really expands to its ultimate extent, then there is no time.
See, I am greedy. That's a fact. Right? I'm greedy, violent. I'm violent. The non-violence doesn't exist. There's only the fact that I'm violent. Now, how do I observe that fact? Is a reflective observation or pure observation in which there is no remembrance, there is no past entering to correct or direct the observation?
I haven't had the experience of what I'm going to say, but I can believe that it is possible to reach that pure observation. And when we reach that pure observation, that violence disappears.
Yes.
Yes.
Moment you say this, then I will ask you how. You can't make a statement like that without the how coming
But
in.
you see, I think the question of how is a mistake. The how implies a system, a method, a practice that's tight. So, the how to me is a distraction away from observation. So, for me, if I may talk about a little bit about my own self, there is no distraction or explanation of or trying to analyze what is, only to observe. And that when that observation is very clear, non-personal, the past doesn't direct my observation, that observation itself, in which there is no observer and the observed, only pure observation dissolves that which is.
The word observation perhaps can be poorly understood. I think acknowledgement of what is, not even with the desire to be rid of it. I know the sense in which you use the word observe, but I'm really trying to explain to myself that there might be another way of putting the matter, perhaps. If, for instance, if the question was raised, do we observe grief in the same way? I'm afraid we do, and this is why we don't get rid of it. We observe it rather in the way in which we observe that as an item to be welcomed or to be rejected. But if we don't, if we acknowledge it with the most ruthless honesty.
No, but when you say, I observe it in the same way as I observe that, could we explore that a little?
Yes, it occurs to me that one does, and this is why one doesn't get rid of it.
That is one
because one notices it as another feature of my time history.
That one notices it in its outer manifestation as thought.
Well, even in its inner presence. You see, I'm not an idolater.
No. But I'm just trying to get to something maybe a little subtle. With what instruments does one observe that?
Well, insofar as one observes it with any instrument at all, I would be suspicious of both the observed and the observation. It seems to me that only when we acknowledge, right non-instrumentally, call it instinctively, call it suddenly, call it anything, but it must be without the mediation of any instrument, any objective. It doesn't mean that everything comes to a stop there, but I think the right modes of alteration and preservation suggest themselves and fulfill themselves. And it's a very simple fact in life, it seems to me, where there is an absolutely ruthlessly honest acknowledgement of whatever, without even the desire to alter it or to sustain it. The mysterious sort of alchemy of change or preservation comes in. That if we observe it, for instance, in the manner of strained attention, common to some systems of yoga, I think we achieve something, but we lose something else. No. What we lose is the quality of suddenness and instantaneousness, which the Christian talks about, and I think you use a very fine phrase in the beginning with the word instant. I've forgotten the second word.
No, when I said with what instrument one uses,
Yes.
when one perceives it, you see, one has to come to one understanding. Is it an interior thing? Is it an interior thing?
What?
Jealousy and greed. Is it an interior thing? Is it an exterior thing? Is it an interior thing? Because we do divide the world into the exterior and interior.
But these are metaphors.
Yeah, it is there, but in order to really come face to face, one has to go through this process of seeing as we think we see. We divide it into the outer and the inner. Greed appears on the screen of the interior. That's what.
I question whether it is outside or inside, or it is an going out and coming in. It's like a tide.
So how do we see it? You must first see how do we see it.
I don't know how you see it.
How do we see it? It's something very, very, I think, real to look. How do we see it?
I learned first, do we see, if I may ask most politely, is it at two different things, outer and inner, or they're interrelated, like the tide going out and the tide coming in? It's a constant movement, in and out, in and out. And thought has captured it and separated itself and made it not dynamic, a sterile thing. And kept us this division, the outer and the inner.
Sir,
You are asking, how do I see it?
you are making that statement. Now let me put it to you. You are saying that thing.
If that disturbs you, I would
No, I'm not saying it disturbs me, but you are saying that.
Yes, I have to.
Now I look at myself and I say, how do I see it? Because in order to come to a tactile feel of it, I have to hold it, I have to come, I have to see it, I have to receive it, I have to embrace it, I have to watch it open up. How does that, again I'll remove the how. First of all, let me examine what actually takes place. What actually takes place?
Actually takes place as the result of the outer, the environment, the education, the family, the tradition, the useless nationality, and so on, so on, so on.
Yes, and I see that these things which I try to avoid, suppress, discipline myself against, are a movement which takes place within myself, which then expresses itself in action.
I don't discipline myself.
You don't.
Sorry.
All of us feel, if we are greedy, that we don't want to be greedy. You don't, but I'm talking about the actuality of it as it operates. How do we see it as a tide? Where the center from which this is directed has ceased to be? Because if there is a tide, then the center has ceased.
No, I said too that this tide has been captured by thought, because the idea that it's a constant movement is frightening. It brings you a sense of instability, insecurity. Therefore, thought brings this extraordinary movement of out and in like a marvelous tide. Thought then makes it into an idea and captures it, and it becomes the self, the me, which is separate from the outer. I don't know if you...
If theoretically at least, if we could still that thinking process, if we could still it, then this interior and exterior would disappear, and with that the greed would disappear. So isn't that, it sounds very simple, but isn't that what...
That's very complex.
Yes, it's very complex, but the idea of it sounds quite clear, that that's what the aim should be.
So,
It's the result of the answer to the how.
No, but I would say, are we prepared for it?
Are we prepared to do it?
End it?
But there is no choice.
See, because if you say you are prepared to end it, you are prepared to end totally the sense of division.
Yes.
Now that's a very, very big statement to make.
Indeed it is.
You see.
But if there is no choice to that statement, that's the only statement one can make.
That's why.
I think we do in humble ways when we love quite without selfishness. We acknowledge the out-there-ness of that which is inner and the in-here-ness of that which is outer in a very simple way. But of course we lose this all at once. I mean, it occurs to me that it might be worth reminding ourselves, not only as a result of very, very deep and analytical thought, important though that
Yes,
is,
they are.
but also the
Don't you finish, sir?
No, I have only a few words to add. That it must not be imagined that human beings are without the resource for this.
I am not.
I know you're not.
I am not
We're all
questioning.
thinking about it.
I am not questioning that. I am saying that this statement is one thing, and
Doing it is another.
And also I would like to ask, why, if I may, sir, why do you use the word choice?
no, he
Choice between what?
Said, no, he said there is
Choice.
no choice.
Choice. There is no choice. We create choices also by making comparisons.
You're saying there's no choice.
I'm saying there is no choice.
Quite, I thought you said
No,
there's
there is
choice.
no choice
I
to
beg
that
your pardon.
statement.
Great.
But stealing is still a temporal metaphor, and I feel worried about it. Perhaps Dr. Kapoor would help me out. It seems to me any suggestion of stealing or stopping something is still to be within the matrix of happening. And of course, it's altogether very mysterious, and it can only be totally and absolutely and suddenly and wholly, to use only some of the large number of metaphors that suggest themselves. I am not so sure if I have understood yoga properly, but it seems to me that the language of it, at any rate, even at its best, is a language of manipulation, however subtle. Now, it may be only a feature of the language and not of the reality, so I do not wish to be unjust to the yogis. But the idea that a whole very ongoing thing has to be stopped seems to me to be open to a kind of distrust. Person like myself who don't want to have breaks to be applied to that quite that fashion. But I may have got the whole thing wrong. Perhaps you could help me.
I think there's more the problem of the language which we have to live with than the problem of the reality as it is. In terms of experiences, if we can convert this word stillness in terms of experiences, I would go about like this. When my emotions are running fast, when the fluctuations of emotions are running fast, there is a greater consciousness of your separation from the outer. It is an experience with all of us. The more the emotions run, the more you are separated. The more the emotions adopt a quality of sameness, the greater is the proximity of inner and the outer. If we took it to its ultimate end, one would imagine, because I am not able to experience it at fully, though I have, as you said, at times experienced it, one would imagine that inner and outer can disappear. You have just given an example of an extreme degree of love situation. I would also add on to it an extreme degree of fear situation, an extreme degree of anger situation even. Any of these emotions, when they are allowed the continuity for a, well, I use the word time again, when allowed to be, the inner and outer disappear.
May I make one of the major differences between what Krishnaji says and what has been usually understood as yoga is the place of the senses. It is, I think, the crucial element in his approach. And I think if we could explore a little into that, it may make, as I have understood you, there is a tendency to regard it as a hindrance to the ending of this the causation. Let's use that word. The ending of the cause-effect chain, that the senses, as if they operate, continue this cause-effect causation, and that to bring about a state where the cause-effect chain is broken, the senses as such have to be put in their place. Let me not use suppressed, but put in their place. Now, Krishnaji has always said that that moment of total being or total seeing or holistic seeing of ending of everything takes place when there is the simultaneity of all the senses operating at their highest level. Perhaps if we could, because there may be the real answer. The answer may not be to try and find some kind of a intuitive point at which this, but to see how the senses operate and whether it is possible for a human being placed in the condition we are to change the way of operating of his senses.
I hope Krishnaji refreshes us again with his experience, with this what he has said before. But just one point I would like to make: I do not think that suppression of senses is what is being discussed, or what I am asking you to do. I am saying if the comparison on which the senses are based, you don't sense anything unless you make comparisons.
Yes,
there is no sensation without comparison. If there is a cutting down of that comparison, whether the senses then are, whether the senses sort of dwindle away or they will all reach at the same level means the same thing. So I would say that I have no difficulty in emotionally totally accepting what Krishnaji has said on this.
When you say cut away,
These are the trouble with the words, you see. The word cut, I wish I could say that without words. Not let it happen. And not let it happen is only possible by not letting me happen. Letting me happen. Me is the thing which
means the absence of the self.
It's the absence of the I, not the absence of the self, I would say.
I don't know.
Yes. Well, again, the words bother us.
Let's call about words.
Yes. Absence of the I-ness is what it's
All
easier
right,
for me to
we'll stick to the I-ness. Now, I am full of that I-ness. Suppose I am full of this self-centered observation of life. And you are giving me a lot of explanations, analyzed, and I'm still where I am at the end of it. Right? Mm-hmm. How do you bring about a disappearance of the I-ness in me?
First of all, by cutting down the how, as you said earlier.
Huh?
You're asking how do we bring it about?
I'm not saying,
I'm saying that.
I'm not silly. I'm saying I'm not asking how. I have this problem in front of me.
Yes, indeed.
A tremendous problem. The I-ness is so extraordinarily important. Controls, shapes, directs everything. My relationship with others, and so on, so on, so on. And you have explained the causation of this self, of this I-ness. I accept the explanation. I accept the analysis. I accept all the rational explanation. At the end of it,
if we really wanted to do it, Krishna.
Don't see if.
No. We want to do it. We want to be without this I. And
Why?
Because by.
Moment you say because, you have a causation.
You're right. Ultimately, if we wanted to really feel it, there will be no dialogue. There will be no dialogue.
I didn't mean that.
No, but in the process of reaching that stage, the I would be removed by a reverent acceptance of what is.
Sir, at the risk of appearing irrelevant, I have to pose a difficulty which I think does not receive its due attention. And that is that we function at different levels of attention. We function at different levels of attention. Now, the whole dialogue as we are carrying it out is carried out, if I may say, with a tension. The tension is the tension of attention. It is not the tension of struggle, but it is the tension of attention. Now, unfortunately, most of us in our daily living are not living at this level of attention, with the result that we are not aware of the fact that attention is playing tricks with us, and all manner of complications we get tied up in, because the discussion with ourselves, the dialogue within ourselves, does not move half as smoothly as it is moving for the past 20 minutes. Is this a real difficulty or am I imagining?
Very real difficulty.
And can we probe it a bit? Or would it be a diversion?
Would I be right asking the question? I am faced with this problem, a very complex, destructive, and enchanting, and embarrassing, and in that there is vanity and all the rest of it. I am faced with this problem, that is the I-ness, which separates you from me, and the whole mess begins. That's the problem I am faced with. How do I approach the problem? That is the more important than the problem itself. How do I approach the problem? Not how in the sense system. How do in what manner I receive the problem? What is my condition that receives the challenge of this problem? What is my state of my mind that says you have to answer this question? So what is my approach to it?
Could I respond to that?
Yes, sir. Yes, I mean.
I'm just a beginner in this process. The first level would be to see really that there is a problem. First of all, to agree with yourself that the problem exists.
Of course it exists.
And exists all the time, and to feel sufficiently miserable about the problem.
No, I don't have to be miserable and happy. It is a problem. It is there hitting me in the face.
I'm saying that you're asking what are the steps. You're suggesting to discuss what are the steps. And
no,
I think
not steps. How do
we approach? And I'm suggesting an approach which may be right or wrong, but my approach would be this. Most of us cannot solve this problem because we partially accept it as a problem. Only partially. At other times we try to overlook it. And I think the first approach would be to accept this problem exists and feel sufficiently miserable because of it. And then to develop sufficient amount of desire to get rid of problem.
You see,
Yes.
that means involving time.
At a beginning, yes. And having reached that stage, one goes further.
I question all that. Forgive me for being rude or anything.
No.
I question. I want to find out what is my approach, because I feel the approach is more important than the problem. So, what is my approach? Is either to escape from it, rationalize it. That's my approach, obviously, and try to resolve it somehow. Analysis, psychiatric treatment, whatever it is. So, can I approach the problem free from all this conditioning? Because my conditioning is going to find the answer or direct the answer to the problem. If I'm free from my conditioning, then I can approach it freely and resolve it immediately. I don't know if I'm talking in the air, but to me...
This is a terrible paradox. Because if you're free of the conditioning,
There is no problem. That's what I'm saying. So,
It seems to me that there is, in all this discussion, there are two bad habits of language which seem to come up. One is the bad habit of using bad physics. We all do this. Namely, when we want to talk about some process which is sequential but not temporal, we talk about when. When we are talking about a higher state of awareness, a more complete state of awareness, an inclusive state of awareness, we talk about it being bigger, as if being bigger. So we make metaphors which are taken from the world of everyday mechanistic phenomena. The other bad habit, which is much more, this one everybody is aware of in a sense, and we know that when we say about the timeless, when the timeless happens, I mean, such paradoxical statement. But a more serious problem is the fact that we act as if there is only one time and only one set of happenings, and everything must be set in that time. The question that as I understand it, nobody who is completely free can ever tell how he was ever bound. Therefore, the person who is completely free is not qualified to talk about how he or she is bound. The person who is not free is not qualified to say how he or she is bound. So that nobody can talk about it. Unless one gives the understanding that in fact we are translating between different conventions, between different systems. And my own experience seems to have been to say that it is not a sequential process. It is not as if you have sat for the school final examination, you passed it and you no longer have to do it. It is a continual situation because every now and then you are there, some other time you are not there, and sometimes there is time and sometimes there is no time. Sometimes you are angry and you don't care about it and you simply deal with the thing, but other times you are angry and you worry about the anger. So it seems to be a continual process, and time is not a one-dimensional thing but a many-splendid thing. And you are I don't like the word switching back and forth because it seems to give it a greater reality. But, and I know you are allergic to referring to the Upanishad, so I won't mention that. But there are times which are interwoven with each other, and it is not possible to talk about the process. It's not that it is unprofitable to talk about process, but any talking about the process is an incomplete and essentially incomplete thing, that it could not ever be explained. How is it that what one did not know, you know now? Or how, if you have known it, how could you ever drop off from it? And the problem reappears in minuscule but well-defined forms in other branches of knowledge, everyday limited experience.
If I may, I am violent. Not off and on, but there is in me this sense of violence, deeply rooted. Sometimes it bursts, sometimes it's less and so on, but it is there. My question is, or my problem is, can it ever end completely? Or it's a process of time, gradually, eventually end?
I would be forced to answer yes and no at the same time, because if you say, can you ever, question is, do you have at least the recollection of a situation? Do you have the image of a situation when you were free of it? It is an image, but nevertheless it is there.
You can't have an image when you are free of it, then you're not free of it.
But if you are in it, then there is no discussion, then there is no question, and one does not even ask the question.
No. Suppose I am violent. I must find an answer, non-analytically, why it exists, whether it is possible to be totally free from it. Not having remembered and the remembrance continuing, even the remembrance ending.
Krishnaji, would you accept the following response merely, not an answer to your question? One can be totally rid of something only if that thing is in some fundamental sense unreal.
Unreal.
in some fundamental sense. I don't mean that it's not there now, be there some other time. If it isn't, let me complete. In some fundamental, and I think there is a tradition to talk about this, but I don't wish to talk about it in a traditional way. But if in some fundamental sense, freedom or violence, if these are not unreal, then these may go now to come back later, if not in me, somewhere else. Now, I'm not proposing an escapist attitude towards these things. I would be very grateful for a response from you to this thought, which I have had and which so many people down centuries have had, that something like bondage can really be totally got rid of if its essential unreality is perceived, not otherwise, because it has been said by greater authorities than myself, although that is not why I'm recording this, that if it isn't, well, it's gone today, back tomorrow. Whereas a shattered illusion is shattered forever. A vanished thief will
But
be back.
I don't accept there is something fundamentally free.
No, I didn't say fundamentally free, fundamentally unreal.
No.
If anything, you said
I only know the fact that I'm violent. That's all I know.
You asked Krishna the question whether it is possible to be rid of it in some magical way.
I said it is possible to be completely be free of it.
Yes, and apropos that, I'll ask the question, if it is ever possible to be completely free of something of that kind, which isn't in its essential nature unreal.
Even to state it is not. If I said one is completely free of it, is not. It wouldn't be true.
I thought you did use those words, sir.
I know, sir. Well, all right, sir. Take this question of suffering, which Mr. Jack had raised earlier. Man has suffered. In spite of every religion, every analysis, and so on, he has suffered. There seems to be no end to suffering. Right? Not only the global suffering, human suffering, personal suffering, this immense suffering of man. What is my relationship not only to the global, but to my own suffering? Or my suffering is just a series of remembrances that makes me suffer, a series of incidents which I remembered, which gave me happiness, and therefore I suffer. It's a continuous recollection of what has been. Now I'm left lonely, miserable, and therefore I suffer. I can find a dozen explanations for all this suffering. But at the end of that explanation, I'm left with the thing in the basket with all the eggs in it.
Would you permit a follow-up? That if at the back of that suffering, say, is attachment, and if I do not realize that this attachment is made of the stuff that dreams are made of, it will never go.
All right, can I end my attachments?
I'm only laying down what occurs to me to be one necessary condition, by no means sufficient. Perhaps it might even be sufficient, I don't know.
Something very interesting, if I may add to what.
Please.
Is this river of sorrow? Is this river of sorrow an existence in itself, or is it the base of it an illusion? Basically, it is that which it arises from attachment, is it in itself has an existence of its own, or is every manifestation of it rooted in some aspect which is basically illusion?
You say that.
I'm asking.
I'm wait a minute. You say it's an illusion. Basis is an illusion.
No, I'm asking. No. This is not, no one said. We are the statement which, as I've understood it, is this, has it an actuality?
Is the actuality an illusion? That's what you're asking.
No.
Aye, that's what he is saying.
He makes a difference between actuality and reality.
No, I think reality.
What, sir?
What is being said is, unless I see the essential unreality of something, it always comes back. So what is the crucial thing is the perception that something is essentially unreal.
Without foundation. Not without cause, but without foundation.
Yes. So if one makes a theory of it, supposing I say something is unessentially unreal, essentially unreal, it can go to the theoretical realm and I create the Maya warning. But actually something which is happening is real. So again there is a split.
Over this. Why should I not acknowledge its actuality in denying the reality of it? I don't deprive it of its actuality. Here and now, of course, I'm at the receiving end. But this is not without cause, but it's without foundation. See, I think what he suggests
It's a very interesting thing.
What you can explain?
Very interesting thing.
What is, I haven't got it. Sir.
Sir, sorrow is actual.
I've lost my son. Go on.
You can say what you like, there is sorrow.
Yes.
There is actuality of sorrow.
Yes.
Unless, no. Then the question arises. He has asked the question. Has this sorrow a reality? Not an actuality, but a reality. If it is based or arises out of an illusion in itself, then it can be completely ended. But if it is of the essence of reality, it will rise up again. There is a difference between actuality and reality.
I'd like semantics back again.
No, I think it's not as really semantics, because I think it's a matter of daily experience that your poignant example of somebody having lost a son. Now the sorrow, if it is that something that was mine has gone away. Now, if I regard that as something that was mine, it may go away today, tomorrow it will come back. But the illusion that it was ever mine, if I don't ever get rid of this, that the son was ever mine in that sense, it's got my son in the sense that it's recorded in the register.
That is the problem. That is the problem. I am attached to my son.
Right, but the attachment is rooted in the belief.
I am attached. It's a fact. I've lost him.
Yes, but supposing it's only of the nature of pain, that is... Yes.
Not if. The fact is, I love my son. Quote love, whatever that may mean.
Unquote, love.
And I've been attached to him desperately for various reasons why I'm not going to the reasons of attachment. I'm attached to him. And suddenly he's gone. And I'm in sorrow. You can't call it, is that an illusion? Or has it any basis in reality? I say, I'm sorry, it is all just words to me.
I don't say it is illusion at all. The sorrowing, or even the sorrow, these are not illusions, but they are, insofar as they are of the nature of a fundamental complaint against the universe.
Maybe, I don't know.
Then I think it would never be possible to be rid of it.
So you see, sir, if it is in the, if you say that it is not, it does not arise out of an illusion which is attachment, then it can never end. How can you end existence?
I don't want to get into semantics, but I just want to put in a little two pennies worth into the discussion. It seems to me it's very much like the question of when are you truly in love? And it is said the first time you fall in love, you are sure it is the last time you fall in love. And the last time you fall in love, you realize that that was truly the first time you fell in love. In the same sense, the question of recognizing something to be without foundation, unreal, etc., is a statement in retrospect. Until I see that particular thing, I do not know. It's a formally undecidable proposition. And if it is seen, then of course it's gone.
But what do you see? Do you not see in your effort to be rid of it forever and ever? Although not in the sense which implies greed, as you I think very instructively pointed out the other day. But if you wish to really be rid of it, then if you haven't seen its foundationlessness, I think it would be of short duration. I mean, even if it is of a fairly long duration, it would be private to you and unshareable in some universal way.
What if we can pin you down. I don't like to say it, but you would say sorrow and totally. In the very nature of that statement is that sorrow is something which is not existence.
Which has not existed.
Which is not of the nature of existence.
This is the nature of existence. My existence is sorrow.
Then have you end existence?
What?
Can you end existence?
The existence that we know of ends, yes. My existence is attachment, jealousy, greed, all the stuff. That's what is my life. That's my consciousness. If I end all that, my existence as I've known it is not.
That is a very important point, because there's a price that must be paid for the permanent ending of these things, and that must be the permanent ending of this little me.
Yes.
That is a price.
Exactly.
Those who don't want to pay that price will never end that. I think that's a very important point.
Quite right, Betsy.
I didn't.
It says the price of ending all this greed, fear, it's the price, the ending of the I.
Yes.
One is prepared to pay the price of ending the I.
Of course.
I enter a minor dissenting opinion because the impression is created that this, once it is accomplished, then you could go around and then say, look, I have graduated. So it is not an ending, because in a certain sense, each time the situation arises, you have another me which has to be destroyed, which has to be given up. And it is not a case of my giving myself up, but when that happens. So one should not talk about it as if it is a purposive action, a causal action. It's a calibration, it's a way of testing, making sure that things have ended. In fact, you don't even have to make sure, because when it happens, that particular I and that particular sorrow and that particular greed and that particular anger and the desire to end that anger, all of them have disappeared, because it looks very much like trying to correct something which happened in a film.
But you know, George, I have a feeling that you can never, I'm using it in quotes, attack the I frontally.
Mm-hmm.
And most of us are trying to attack the I frontally. What are you doing? Boxing with the shadow. That there is only the fragment which manifests itself. The ending of that is the ending of that.
The dream thief can't be got rid of by inventing a dream policeman. You have to wake up.
So how are you, not how, what will make me wake up?
Waking up.
Yes, what? That's an answer, but it's not an answer to me. I'm asleep. I'm drugged.
We can't really be unless we are all asleep. At the
Sir,
same time, if we are.
please, not at times. I am drugged. I have worked. I go to the office from morning till night. I'm exhausted. I'm bored. I'm lonely. I have sex. I've got so many problems of money, rent, the whole of that. And you're talking to me about something which I don't understand. This is my existence. My miserable, confused, absurd existence. And I'm asking you, please, if I'm silly enough, help me to get out of this. And all you're giving me, some other thing which I don't want.
No, I think if a sick personality change analysis, it goes to somebody with a tremendous problem, and he's told that this has no foundation, that this is of the nature of unreality, that might be of some help. Although I got your question, so I just wanted to suggest that even that is not without its help. But I see the difficulty you're raising. I simply suggest that if I don't love you, I mean in some simple, not clamorous sense.
No, if you love me.
If I love you.
Naveed, not if. You see, we are all going off the if, when.
But you can't use when either.
Huh?
You can't use when either.
No.
Also time.
So one must use pidgin English.
Yes.
You said you'd come to me with this, but of course this because everybody realizes this conversation has a sense of unreality of life, because I really should be going to you and with this in place. But I love you, and I listen without interrupting or intervening with some neat, nice solution. And I take your question as I've heard it. You come to me, and you have this runaway trouble of misery, and of this runaway I-ness, or whatever. You come to me and you say, help me. And I love you. And and the manifestation, the first manifestation, and it may be perfectly adequate, is simply to listen.
To listen.
Listen.
Yeah.
Listen with absolute attention.
Yes.
This is what love is.
Yeah.
I think that is itself the cure.
Please, sir.
I think your state of existence, what you have decided to be, is taken out of your own freedom to be miserable, to suffer, to laugh, to die, whatever is taken out of your own freedom, because the process of becoming, which is taking shape in time, and existence, which is part of becoming, and the embodiment or attribute of existence is becoming. Out of your freedom and becoming, you have taken this chance of suffering, this chance of love, any situational condition, and out of your freedom you can get out of this situation.
Are you saying, sir, we are free?
Yeah. I mean, mentally free. We can grasp the situation.
Are we? I'm educated.
Pardon?
Are we free? I'm educated. You follow? The whole process of education is to condition me.
Yeah. But I can always...
Whole life around me is put such tremendous pressure which is making me what I am. I'm not free. I don't start with freedom.
But we can always feel the freedom. Huh? The alternatives are there. When you see the alternative, when you see the choiceless choice, or many choices, then you feel that you are free, because you can select any one of them.
I won't enter the word choice. I don't think choice exists.
There is a choice, to suffer or not to suffer.
It's only when I'm blind that I have choice.
I feel that we have got choice. Out of choice we suffer, or out of choice we enjoy, and being a situational being.
We're all becoming something, sir, aren't we? That is the root of all this misery. Is there a state, or whatever you call it, which is not becoming?
You mean to say becoming is a misery?
Of course it is.
Becoming we cannot stop. Becoming is something which is time itself.
Therefore I'm saying that time itself has made my life miserable. I want to be the governor, and I can never be the governor. I can't be as clever as you are, I can never be. I want to be as clever as you are, and I'm striving as hard as hell to be as clever as all of you, and this becoming is becoming a torture, which is a fact.
Then being itself becomes a torture. There is no change at all.
You see,
The
if you don't become end, something else starts, not you be. I don't know if I end, not I. If there is an ending to my becoming, the whole idea of becoming something, that is, I should be, I must be, I'll reach nirvana, I'll be more clever, I'll have one day free. This is my whole educative process, traditional process. I must be something. And if I end that becoming, if it's possible, it is possible, then I am not, I am. I am not then. There is something totally new taking place. When there is an ending, something totally new takes place. Obviously.
You mean ending of becoming?
Yes.
You mean you can stop the process of becoming?
Oh yes, fairly easily. Why should I be like some clever man? Why should I compare myself with you or with somebody? Not that I'm vain, not that I'm proud. I don't want to compare. I don't want to become a rich man or a sannyasi or this or that. I don't.
I agree with you that we have got a limited choice.
Huh?
I agree with you that we have got very limited choice.
I have no choice. I don't want all that. There's no choice.
And what is the choiceless becoming?
What?
What is the choiceless being?
Then we have to find out why you as a human being are becoming. When you end that, you'll find out. Of course. I mean,
Sure about that.
otherwise you're playing with words.
But that ceasing to become would be an awakening, would it not? It would not be another point in time. Be an awakening.
But the awakening itself is in time.
No.
Not in that sense, no, because you will realize retrospectively that you were always really awake.
Yeah, we are, degree of awakening might be less or more, but it is always in time.
Yes, but retrospectively you will abolish the process also.
Sir, I'm not asking you personally, have we ever ended anything without any motive, without any cause? Just say, over. I'm attached to my wife, attached. You know all the implications of attachment, fear, loneliness, jealousy, anxiety, or agony if she disappears, all that. To end without any cause. Then something totally new takes place.
Would you accept that in humble ways, in addition to the major ways, when we quite, without greed, wake up, or go to sleep for that matter, actually, in the day, or
don't bring in sleep. Be careful.
I want to do justice even to sleep. I just dream that I am supposed to not sleep. But I think when we call it a day, without pushing the program of greed beyond a particular point, and fall asleep, as a child does, or anybody does who is a child really, I think we do what you have so beautifully suggested, put an end So in this case, there's this very glittering thing, being awake. And also when we wake up, without wishing to prolong.
When we wake up, we begin again.
Yes, but I'm suggesting that in humble ways there is a promise of what could in a deeper way also be attained. You're quite right, this is lost. But I think it is some small comfort to be reminded of the humble ways in which we at any rate hold the promises.
Could I make a comment on that, Gandhi? The sleep is giving up after exhaustion. Exhaustion from the day's greed. It's not a conscious giving up.
Not necessarily always. Think of a child.
Yes.
He's not exhausted if you start to play a game with him. He will play. Left in
No,
himself.
I'm limiting myself to sleep from greed.
Yes, no,
Sleep from.
I was trying to remind myself
Yes.
of an occurrence which is very pervasive, but the significance of which we are not taught. Likewise, when we give a gift without
Yes,
anything,
yes.
it's just we part with it. That's putting an end to it being in my hand. The bouquet of flowers which I have, I give it.
So, we are educated from childhood to be something, right? Right, sir? BAs, MAs, PhDs, doctors, scientists, surgeons, something all the time, right? We are conditioned to that. I don't want to be like you. You may be God Almighty, or the incarnation of divinity, or the greatest genius scientific. I don't want to be like you. I don't compare myself with you. Not that I'm vain, not I'm this. I should, why should I be like him? So, I have no desire to be like somebody else, nor the desire to be myself. I don't know myself.
No desire at all.
That's the matter. I have no desire to be myself because I don't know what I am. So I begin to investigate what I am, not what I should be.
Do you think what I am is quite different from what situation I live in?
Of course not. I said, sir, in the beginning, we are the past, the present, and the future. It's all centered in me.
Then how can be the duality of I and
There's duality night and day, there's duality between man and woman. Duality between short and tall, but in myself I have no duality. It is so. I am what I have no duality, I am that. You see, this becomes quite a...
Difference, not duality.
What?
Difference, not duality. The point you made the other day.
Yes, sir.
There's difference, but not duality.
May I ask, would it be worth thinking a little bit about world suffering, other people's suffering? Does that relate to personal suffering?
What's that?
The suffering of other people, of the world.
I said that.
Marcus,
We said that.
Marcus, does this also disappear in personal suffering ceases?
Like those saints, like those social workers, they devote their life to, what's happening in social work.
He's asking, when personal suffering ends, does the suffering for humanity, the world suffering, does it end?
Does the suffering, when your suffering ends, what happens to, what is your relationship to the suffering of human beings? Is that right, sir?
Yes.
Am I different from other human beings? You may be tall, you may be fair-skinned, I am a very dark, black skin, or I may be this or that. But in our consciousness, are we very different from the other man? Because in my consciousness, I'm greedy, I believe, I this and that. I'm lonely, I'm desperate, I'm depressed, I'm ambitious, I'm suffering. This is the ground on which all human beings stand. It is not my sorrow and world sorrow, it is sorrow. I don't know, this may be true.
You will never answer this question, if I may put it to you. when the ending of personal sorrow.
It is sorrow, not my sorrow or your sorrow.
There is an ending of sorrow. Compassion.
Ah, that's a different matter. Now just...
Compassion is the sorrow for mankind.
Yeah.
You can't.
No, please. Compassion is only possible when there is the ending of sorrow. If you end sorrow in the feeling of this extraordinary weight of it, the depth of it, the great beauty of it also, when that is ended, then that the ending is the passion of compassion. It's not my ending and then I am compassionate. It is compassion. And that compassion has its own intelligence. And that intelligence acts. Full stop.
Would you not say that it is not a personal sorrow that ends, but the sorrow of personality, and that is surely very good news. It says that it's not a temporary, ad hoc ending of sorrow today. But suppose one person achieves this radical ending of sorrow, and that will be not the ending of personal sorrow, but the sorrow of personality, truly good news. And I think therefore it really, in its own way, I'm sure there are occult ways also in which this victory affects, as we know from the past and indeed from the present.
So our intelligence is the intelligence of thought. It's not the...
hear that.
Our intelligence is the intelligence of thought.
Yes.
But it's not compassion which has its own intelligence.
Except that. It's beautiful.
You'll have to answer.
Is it time to start?
Tomorrow, sir.
Tomorrow at 9 o'clock. 9:30.
9:30.
That's it.